On today's show, Tim Stützle is going to the Olympics and the Ottawa Senators made a signing over the weekend.
And we continue our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings with one of the hardest workers in the draft.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Monday, June 16th, and Pillsy, I walked into the studio this morning the same way that I do after we do a late night postcast on the West Coast and then record at 8 a.m. Man, that mock draft took a lot out of me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of consecutive days tied together, over 6 hours of prospect coverage, and not just for Sens fans. I know we're the Locked On Senators podcast, but we covered every single team's pick. Some teams, 2 picks, even 3 picks. So if you want to know all about this first round and the players that could possibly go from some of the best prospect experts in the business, go check out our video.
And there are timestamps if you want to click through and see certain teams, certain picks. And it always came back to the Ottawa Senators. We asked each of our 8 experts what would be an ideal first round situation for the Senators, who draft 21st overall. And the draft is 2 weeks away, fella. Not this Friday, but next. Stay tuned for more information about what we're planning for our draft day coverage, draft night coverage, and maybe something special for day 2. That's all to come. But Pillsy, today, every team in the Milan Olympics have announced their first 6 players. Now, at the time of this recording, we're still waiting for Canada. We're still waiting for the United States. But early this morning, it was official. What everybody already knew. Tim Stutzle is among the first 6 players for Team Germany. The Sens will have at least one representative at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, it's nice to see that Tim Stutzle, part of the preliminary 6 players on Team Germany for the Olympics. Like you said, I don't think that's a surprise for anyone. Probably him, Draisaitl, and Seider were guaranteed locks for that. Some elite talent for Team Germany, but it's going to be exciting to see him play on a world stage. Now, obviously, we saw him play World Juniors. We've seen him play in the World Championship, but the Olympics are back, and it's going to be best on best minus one country. But overall, it's going to be awesome to see NHL players back in the Olympics. It was kind of fun to have them away from the Olympics for a little bit, Ross. Because it was cool, though, because Germany almost won the gold medal. I forget what year that was, but they messed up.
You forget because nobody watched.
I was watching.
Okay. Yeah, you were watching because Danny Taylor was there, probably.
I was a big Danny Taylor guy. So hopefully Tim Stutzle can bring Germany at least close to a medal again, as a sneaky good team. Like, they don't have a lot of depth, but like we mentioned, Draisaitl, Seider, Peterka, not one of the 6 Germans mentioned. That's an interesting one. We were talking before, Ross. It's got to be because of his contract being up in the air. Maybe it's an insurance thing. They can't fully clearly name players to Olympic teams unless they're signed for insurance reasons. I don't know. That's just speculation. But they're going to be fun to watch.
Well, when you have Nico Sturm as a possibility, I mean, you got to get him in the mix. But jokes aside, look, Tim Stutzle's been to 2 world championships so far. He's been the captain of the under-20 World Junior team, but despite representing Germany on so many different stages, under 16, under 18, under 20, and the World Championships, as I mentioned, this will be his first opportunity to play with Leon Draisaitl. And that, to me, is going to help his game immensely, just being around him. Think about how Nicholas Matin-Palo went to the 4 Nations, and he's like, man, just being around them, practicing against Rantanen every day. Well, it would be shocking to me. I know they're both centermen technically, but like we see in Edmonton with Connor McDavid, Draisaitl often moves up and plays the wing on that line. I would be shocked with how Germany needs to be top heavy to compete at these Olympics if we don't see a top line of Draisaitl, Stützle, and Peterka.
Oh, yeah. See, I kind of thought the other way, Ross. Since
No.
they don't have that much depth, you want to spread the wealth around. Otherwise, what's going on when you're playing those other three lines up against Team Canada, whose fourth line could be a top line?
Well, we know what happened last time Tim Stützle, maybe not the last time. I don't know if they played World Championships last couple. Wasn't it 14-1 when they played Canada at the World Juniors?
The Sens rewarded him with an NHL contract after that, though.
Yeah, but what I'd say is those other lines, and they still have good players that play over in Europe, but those would just be like, hey, let's get 50-50 shifts. Let's try to at least like go close to even there and then really go hard when we have three elite players on the top line and Seider on the back end. Philip Grubauer is going to be their goalie. That's a whole different can of worms issue that we'll see if he can be on the same level or at least close to the other countries who all have sick goaltending. Now, Frank Saravalli, who loves spoiling picks, thinking back to the expansion draft with Seattle, he is projecting, is his words, and the Team USA roster will probably be out around the time you're listening to this. It looks like Brady Tkachuk will be one of the first 6 players named. And Sens fans are like, yeah, duh. But that's a huge feather in his cap because Team USA is obviously loaded top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll be among the 6 with Matthew Tkachuk as well. The thing I'm waiting for, Ross, is to see who's going to be named captain. If they go back to Austin Matthews as the captain of Team USA, that's just embarrassing. The guy brings no energy, no vibes. It was clear to anyone watching the Four Nations face-off that that team ran through the Tkachuk brothers, and Brady Tkachuk was a leader on that team. They better give him the seat.
Well, if Frank Saravalli's right, Austin Matthews will be the captain.
Lame. So lame. God.
The 6 names that Frank Saravalli has here: Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, and Charlie McAvoy. Are you a little surprised Connor Hellebuck isn't among the first 6? The guy just won MVP of the NHL, won the Vezina Trophy for the 3rd time. I get that his playoff numbers weren't spectacular. He did also, I think, have 2 shutouts in the playoffs, but still, like, I get that they weren't good, especially on the road, but like, you're not bringing the NHL MVP and a goalie who's going to be on your roster as one of your first 6 players.
Yeah, that is pretty surprising. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. He's going to be brought along. I think that's pretty clear to say. But yeah, I think I would have put that guy on the top 6 for sure.
Amazing. So as we await the Team USA and Team Canada first 6 players.
No leaks on Team Canada from Frank?
No, but you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. We're talking captains. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Sidney Crosby will be Canada's captain at the Olympics.
No way. No way.
Take a quick guess. Who do you think the 6 players will be for Team Canada?
Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon. Those are the easy ones. Makar.
Yeah.
Help me out here. Who do you think?
Well,
rounds
you know
out
who
that
was
list?
you know who was one of the first 6 for the Four Nations, and I was surprised and almost like, what? But the way he's playing, like, do you think Brad Marchand gets the respect factor?
Yeah, and I mean this will be his last kick at the can as far as Olympics go. Probably. I shouldn't say that so certainly. But yeah, I could see him getting in the mix there too. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Marner, future Vegas Golden Knight.
Yeah, true. I don't know if he's going to Vegas, but that's a different conversation.
And then Jordan Binnington, the way he played at Four Nations, like, I think I feel like every team, and I know I just said that with Team USA, every team should have a goalie in their first 6 players. Hashtag goalie friendly show.
Pretty important to have a goalie. Yeah, I know.
Latvia had 2 goalies in their first.
Hey, they're set. They're set in the crease.
Merzlikins and Shilovs are their 2 goalies.
Make sure Shilovs is ready for that face-off if it comes.
That was wild. Go check that out from the AHL finals.
Yeah, I know Binnington is a big game guy, and I have all the respect in the world for him, but it still is kind of disappointing that Team Canada doesn't have elite high-end goalies that are easy blue chip check marks. You're like, we got this guy, we're good. It's been too long. What's going on in Quebec? Quebec used to be a goalie factory. It doesn't seem that way anymore.
Yeah, they need to figure it out here. I think they have a goalie in next draft, but we'll wait till next mock draft to get into the potential future of Quebec net mining. But yeah, I'd like to see Jordan Binnington be one of the first 6. I think just the way he played down the stretch with St. Louis and at Four Nations, he deserves a spot in the top 6. Let us know in the comments who your top 6 players would be for Team Canada. And no spoilers, because by the time this comes out, Team Canada's first 6 might come out as well. We're recording this just after 11:20 a.m. But congratulations to Tim Stutzle. Congratulations, the impending congratulations to Brady Tkachuk, 2 guests of Locked On Senators, 2 friends of the show. I'll go a step further with that.
I was going to say, maybe this is pushing it, but Jake Sanderson, I don't think will make the top 6 list, but I think he gained a lot of respect from Team USA hockey based on the way he played when they finally smartened up and put him in.
I would like to give you some credit, Pillsy. You just took the next question right out of my mouth. Which other Ottawa Senators do you think we will see at the Olympics, knowing that this won't be decided today, but who do you think has a chance to be at the Olympics? Should I read off the teams for you? And why don't we go team by team, and you can let me know who you think from which team could make that level. So Team Canada. I don't think we're going to get a Canadian on Team Canada.
No, I mean, the closest guy would probably be Drake Batherson, and I don't think he cracks the list.
Or Thomas Chabot.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Team Czechia. I don't think the Senators have that. I think there's a better chance that Philip Schlappick makes Team Czechia.
Yeah, I'm going to go no one on Team Czechia. Yeah.
The Sens don't even have any Czech players.
Now that Kubelik's gone.
Well, Jan Yannick.
True. Yeah, I don't think he cracks the list, though. Nope.
He doesn't have a contract, so it won't be one of the top 6 if we're right about that. Team Denmark, we could see Mads Søgaard be one of the 3 goalies there. They announced Freddie Anderson as their starter, no doubt. Now at the World Championships, I don't know if Mads was still dealing with the injury or what the situation was there, but they didn't put him on the roster. They obviously have goalies in Europe that they could choose. You think we could see Mads Søgaard?
I don't know. I don't think so, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, he's missed so much time, and then when he has been playing, it hasn't been ideal for Mads. We're hoping he has a big offseason and has a big comeback, though.
Yeah, so Tim Stützle for Team Germany for sure. Nobody for Team France. Nobody for Team Italy. Nobody for Team Latvia. And by the way, this will be the first time Team Latvia is without Senators legend Kaspars Daugavins. Just announced his retirement recently, so that's too bad. He was always a fun player. Team Slovakia. Again, the Sens used to be heavy on the Slovaks. We got none right now.
Yeah, that's so. There's another 0.
Switzerland, no.
Nope.
Team USA, Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson. I believe Jake Sanderson will be on that team.
Absolutely.
The big question: Team Sweden, is Linus Ullmark there? Yes.
I think he makes it. Will he be the number 1 starter? I don't think so. I think maybe Markstrom or Gustafsson will take that spot, but I do believe he'll be one of the 3. Yeah.
Okay. And then Team Finland. Nicholas Mattin-Palo had to wait a few to get his name called with the injuries, but I think he showed well.
I don't know if he'll be a starter, but I bet he gets named.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And that leads us in, as we're talking about Team Finland, to Lassi Thomson, the Senators' first-round pick from 2019, is back. Lassi comes home, as the story is told. Why is Ottawa bringing the 24-year-old back? We'll discuss that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app, guys. It's a complete financial command center. I like the sound of that. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money. Start building that wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
All right, Pilsy. So, Steve Staios, known NHL defenseman for a number of years, continues to only sign defensemen this offseason. First, it was Nicholas Matinpalo. Then it was Tyler Kleven. And now it's Lassi Thomson. A bit of a surprise. Now, Bruce Garriock did mention the possibility a few weeks ago of Lassi Thomson exploring an opportunity to come back. And now he is here. The Senators, by the way, retained his rights as an RFA despite him going over to Malmo in the Swedish Hockey League, the top level over there. And they're bringing him back on a contract that will pay him a nice raise if he's in the American Hockey League. He would need waivers to go down at the end of training camp. But what are your thoughts on a one-year contract at league minimum in the NHL at $775,000, but $300,000 in the American Hockey League?
Honestly, I like it, Ross. I mean, he was an RFA, so the Sens had the option to do this. He had a big year in the SHL with the Malmo Redhawks, 50 games, 17 goals, 12 assists, 29 points. So getting more goals than assists as a defenseman. Even got some time in the playoffs, 8 games, 3 goals, 1 assist for 4 points. It's a one-year deal, low risk. He's played a handful of NHL games. He's got 18 NHL games, 5 points in those 18 games. And he's a guy that, at the very least, Ross, will be a veteran player in Belleville and can help out some of the younger defensemen there. So I see this as a good move. Like, if you need him to play a couple games in the NHL as a spot starter, if there's injuries or whatever, obviously not ideal, but he's a guy that at least you're comfortable doing that. And the Ottawa Senators needed a little bit more depth on the right side. So I think it's a good move for Lassi and the Ottawa Senators.
It's going to add a great storyline to training camp. What did Lassi get better at over there? Can he be a reliable in-zone defender? How is he off the rush defending? We know he's got the Tom Bomb, and unfortunately, that Tom Bomb went away a little bit in his last year with the Ottawa Senators. Only 6 goals in 67 games after putting up double-digit goals in only 44 games the year before in the American Hockey League. Well, he found that scoring touch in the Swedish Hockey League, led his team in goals. That's not a typo. Led his team in goals and points. Now, he led his team in points with 29 points in 50 games. He wasn't necessarily playing on the Edmonton Oilers of the SHL, very low-scoring team. But to me, that's a good sign that he can still rip it. He also had a good playoffs down there with 3 goals in 8 games. So I think the Sens needed depth on the right side, and this is a very nice piece for Belleville. Let me be clear, for Belleville, if Nick Jensen cannot start the year in the NHL, to me, this doesn't mean Ottawa doesn't need another NHL defenseman. This is purely a Belleville move where if he's playing well in the season, then you can call him up and see what you got. There's no world, unless he comes out and scores a point a game and looks great defensively in preseason, that you can put him in the opening night roster.
No,
Bruce said, hey, this is good insurance for Nick Jensen. We had Marco wrote to us on Twitter and saying Nick Jensen could have his leg amputated. I still wouldn't put him in the NHL lineup. Now, it's a bit of a stretch, but I do think that this is something where it's going to look really good in Belleville.
Yeah, I'm not looking at this as a Nick Jensen insurance move. Even Ross, I wouldn't want him playing ahead of Matinpalo, and I wouldn't want to split Tyler Kleven and Matinpalo up. Although, did Lassi and Kleven have any time in Belleville together? I mean, maybe a little bit.
A little bit, but Lassi was on a different pair. I think it was Lassi and Hetherington, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that was the year after. I know Lassi has played a lot with Dylan Hetherington, but no, it was Matinpalo and Kleven that played a lot together in Belleville. So
no, I know last year the year before they had spent a lot of time, but I wasn't sure about before that when Kleven got a couple games in Belleville. But Ross, I was looking through Lassi's game logs with the Malmo Redhawks, and he was a top pair defenseman, like you said, led his team in points. Lassi even had a hat trick in one game. Hat trick for a defenseman is pretty rare. So that's interesting for sure. So yeah, excited to have Lassi back, and hopefully he can really help out Belleville.
And he's going to turn 25 during training camp. So it's showtime for him. He's got a lot to play for if he wants to stay in North America and be a National Hockey League player. So strange. 2 years ago in training camp where Ottawa put him on waivers. Anaheim picked him up. He played one preseason game there, had a pizza right up the middle that cost him a goal, right back on waivers, right back to the Ottawa Senators. So we'll see how Lassi Thomson fits in, 19th overall pick in the 2019 draft. Again, it's a great storyline for the Ottawa Senators training camp rosters and puts a little more depth. The right side of the D-core that, as it stands right now, you've got Zub, Jensen, and Matin Palo in the NHL. And then in the AHL, you've got Carter Yakimchuk, Lassi Thomson, and Jabril Toure with Max Gannett and Jeremy Davies as Gannett's an RFA. Jeremy Davies is a UFA. And that's the way it goes. So maybe this is a Jeremy Davies replacement. I thought Davies looked good in Belleville last year, but if he's moving on, this would be your offensive defenseman who you're hoping can pop off with numbers and help your team win.
Yeah, I hope it's not a Davies replacement, Ross. I really
There's only
liked
so
him.
Many spots, though.
Yeah, but he was a leader on that team in points, an all-star even. And Davies is the left shot, right?
No, is he?
I thought he was a left shot. I could be wrong.
Did we screw up on our thing? He is. Damn it. You're right. Left shot. So we still got, there we go. So Jabril Toure then is your fourth defenseman right now. Third if Gannett's done in Ottawa, which I hope not because we like Gannett on the right side. So nice little correction there. So Jeremy Davies, left shot defenseman, and Ottawa's Belleville, I should say, is left side of the D-core right now is extremely young. Jorian Donovan, Tomasz Hamara, and Matthew Andonovski are the three signed. Donovan Sabrango's an RFA. Again, we hope he's back. He took on a good leadership role down in Belleville last year. So, yeah, plenty of room for Jeremy Davies if he's going to come back in that role on the left side. Nice correction there. We prefer getting the corrections in. We know we're wrong all the time. So it's nice getting the corrections in while we're still on the show.
Yeah, and Ross, usually that's not my strong suit, knowing what way a guy shoots. So that's a rare victory for me over here.
Hey, it's a victory for the show. Okay, that's what it is. And we're going to continue our show with our NHL Draft Rankings. A player who I have been told by multiple people is of very high interest to the Ottawa Senators, and another kid from Winnipeg who had his season ended with injury, but holy smokes, when this guy plays, he produces. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pillsy, I'm still kicking myself over here about Jeremy Davies. I'm the shot knower on this show. Who shoots left? Who shoots right? But we mentioned Jabril Toure's name. I'm so curious to see him next season because he actually sneaky got 36 games in Belleville this year, had 6 points, 57 PIMs, was +2, and that was as a 21-year-old. Like, this guy is sneaky, could be AHL type player. He's 6'7", dude. Like, he's a beauty. I got to meet him when they were in Manitoba last year. He's an all-time guy. So I'm rooting for him as an undrafted free agent that Ottawa signed. And we thought it was just Pierre Dorion being like, oh, we love connections on this show. Jabril Toure played junior A for the Hawkesbury Hawks with Pierre Dorion's son.
Yep.
But nice start to Jabril Toure's professional career. He played 24 games in the ECHL, was +8, 8 points and 41 PIMs, at 4 points in 10 playoff games as well. So I'm still thinking the ad on the right side, whether it's NHL, hopefully, or in the AHL. And just a name I'm going to throw at you that I may have heard from a person or two. Sam Malinsky could be a guy the Sens target, not the sexiest name, maybe the worst number in the National Hockey League. He's a defenseman that wears number 70. So that would have to be cleaned up. But the profile actually kind of fits. He'd be like the player comparable I would use for him is Chris Weidman. Is that fair? Like a little undersized, decent puck mover and can get up the ice. But Colorado's got a lot of under 6 foot defensemen or right at it. And by a lot, I mean 2. It's a lot for this day and age. Look at Florida, look at Edmonton on the back end. And they've got Sam Girard there. So he's an RFA, Sam Malinsky. We'll see if maybe Ottawa trades for his rights.
Yeah, I think he'd be an interesting player for sure, because that to me, Ross, would be more Nick Jensen insurance. Not that he could fully take over that role, but if Jensen was to miss some time at the start of the season, you got a guy that played a full season in the NHL last year and showed pretty decently just based on his stats. I'm not going to pretend I'm fully aware of his game, but that would be a cheap replacement that maybe you could find something good there. And I wouldn't mind that deal at all.
What do you think the next move is for Steve Staios, man? Like we're getting into crunch time right now.
Yeah, I'm of the mind, Ross, that Giroux, there's two deals kind of handshake agreement on. There's one deal if they're not able to pull off a big move, and there's another deal if they feel like they've done enough to convince him to take a bit of a discount. So it'll be interesting to see how things go here.
Okay.
But I guess I didn't really answer your question.
No,
there.
you didn't.
No, I didn't. I don't think Giroux's the next move. I'll say that.
Okay. Do you think this could be like hey, the Sens know what he's looking for, so it's already, because we keep saying like they need cost certainty, but if they have in the back of their head, here's what it's going to cost, then it won't stop them from making other moves. Frankly, what you're saying is that other moves might show Giroux, hey, if I take a discount, it's not like my money's going to go into your savings account. It's going to be used to help the team get better right now, and he wants a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And just quickly on the quote where Andlauer said they're not going to spend to the cap, I think maybe that got taken out of proportion. I think what he's saying is we're not going to max out our finances and be strapped when it comes to the season so that we have to start the season playing a man short like they had to do in the past. I think they're going to be, a little bit more responsible with that and have maybe 1.5 million room for breathing and to make changes if necessary. I think that's what he was getting at.
Which is good, but he also did make a fair point, and this was Melnyk saying, and this is pretty relatable, like, hey, we'll deal with that later. Like, it's not today's problem. But how many of the contracts that were signed under Eugene Melnyk where the cap hit is what it is, but the last few years of the deal, the player is making so much more money than at the start, where it's like, hey, we'll give you this on average, so it's market value, give or take.
Yep.
But you're going to play for, like, Brady Tkachuk's first year of his deal, I think he made $4 million. Thomas Chabot about $4 million. Now, we do see it's not completely unique that young players at 23, 24, they get a bit of a backloaded contract, but it feels like Ottawa did that to a very emphatic degree. And I think the perfect example of that would be Thomas Chabot, where for him, he's making in cap hit $8 million, but this year and next year he's making $10 million in real money. The other one is Brady Tkachuk. He's at $8.2 million cap hit. He's making $10.5 million this upcoming season. So just worth noting there, same Drake Batherson, we always talk about as a great cap hit under $5 million. Well, he's actually making 6.5 this year and next year in real money. So Andlauer did note, hey, our cost to run this team is a lot more than the cap space that we have. There are a couple that are under that, like Ridley Gregg, who just signed the deal at 3.25. He's actually just making 2.75 in real money this year.
Well, but that's the same example, a backloaded deal, right?
Exactly. And for a younger player, Nick Jensen is making $3 million in real money. He's at a $4 million cap hit. So there's a little inside mathematics as the Senators continue to look to make their team better going into the transactional period of the summer, which usually takes place right before Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and then into the first week of July. Speaking of the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs and into the first week of the transactional period, that includes the NHL Draft. And coming in on our National Hockey League Draft Rankings here on Locked On Senators at number 16 from the Moose Jaw Warriors, it's Lynden Lakovic.
Yep, Lynden Lakovic only had 47 games this year, Ross. Unfortunately, he suffered a fractured collarbone in December. That took a bunch of games away from him. But when he was playing, he made the most of it on a league worst Moose Jaw Warriors team. Ross, this wasn't just a bad team. This was a terrible team. They finished last in the WHL. I'm pretty sure they finished with 15 wins all year long. I believe they traded Braden Yager halfway
Early.
through. Earlier than
I think it was around World Juniors.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the writing on the wall being like, no, we're going nowhere here. And Lakovic had to pick up a lot of the slack. And that's where you see the minus 25 come into play there. So take that with a grain of salt. But in 47 games, he had 27 goals, 31 assists, good for 58 points. And here's the real interesting number, Ross. How about 4 PIMs in 47 games for a guy that's 6'4", 200 pounds? You might expect him. I'm not saying he's got to be a goon out there, but you might expect him to have a little bit more PIMs, getting in the mix a little bit more. But if that's what you're thinking for Lakovic, that is not the case at all. This guy is a finesse sniper that has a good all-around offensive game.
Yeah, his skating is decent, but it's his puck skills, whether that's passing the puck, handling the puck, shooting the puck. That's where he separates himself from other prospects around this range. He's also one of the older prospects in this draft class. He's born December 2006. Left shot, left wing, but can play the right side as well. 6'4", 200 pounds. Highest ranked by our friend over at Locked On NHL Prospects at 13. McKean's also has him at 13. Elite Prospects and Bob McKenzie's midterm rankings have him at 14th overall. And then Scott Wheeler at 18, Corey Prodman at 24, and Craig Button, the lowest on him, at 25 overall. So we know he could shoot the puck. The 27 goals in 47 games, that tells that story. We know that he's a guy who can, I don't want to say drive a line, but drive offense on a line. But do you think that when scouts see a player this big, they're almost disappointed, no matter how well he plays the game, they're almost disappointed because they expect guys of that size to play a certain way?
Absolutely, especially in junior, Ross. Like this guy's got to be bigger than most players, and he doesn't take advantage of it. EP points out he doesn't use his size enough, doesn't have a physical game. And it's kind of tough. Like, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of edge that he has. Like, a guy his size should be physical and dominating in puck battles and should have no fear going into the boards or going after loose pucks. I'm not saying that he does have fear, but it's just, I don't know. If this kid was 5'11", 180 pounds, I think I'd be like, I wouldn't have any sort of concern's not the right word either. I wouldn't have any sort of negative feelings towards it, but seeing that size and not seeing any of that physicality or him using that strength to his advantage does worry me a little bit, because if he's not going to do it in juniors, how the heck is he going to find that aspect of his game up against men in the pros?
Yeah, well, if you watched our mock draft, which is available on YouTube right now, Jerome Berube made point of saying that some teams have had success doing that. Zachary Bolduc being a recent example of a guy who has added that element. Now, you always hear scouts and teams and trainers say, hey, we'd rather reel that guy back rather than need to push him forward. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but it is a skill you can develop. Like, I do think that if you teach a player physicality, or I think even more than coaching, it's going to be players that he's around in the room. If you're on Brady Tkachuk's hockey team, for a Senators example, you're going to be expected to play a certain way. And I think Drake Batherson could be a player comparable for Lynden Lakovic, where it's a guy who came into the league not being an overly physical player, being a guy with great hands off the wing, great vision, could shoot the puck. But then when you get to the National Hockey League level, sure, you can put up 40, 50, 60 points, but where's that jam, that grit in your game? And we saw Batherson 5-6 years into his NHL career be able to add that to his repertoire. He's not going to run guys over in the open ice, but he's finishing hits on the forecheck. He's creating more loose pucks and offensive zone possession. And that, to me, is the player you're hoping to develop in Lynden Lakovic. I like this prospect. I'm kind of with you that there's players in this range. I came into this process, and obviously hearing that Ottawa liked him a lot kind of made me perk up to his name a little bit more. but there are some players who I think bring a little bit more. And at this range, there's so many centermen available, and it's easier to move a centerman to the wing than have more flexibility with a winger already. So he's probably going to be in that Senators range on my final rankings, where I think a team, it just takes one to love him and snag him earlier. But I think 20 to 25 is probably the range that I would say Lynden Lakovic should go in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what teams think of him. I've got him in the teens, Ross. I think actually a team will take a flyer on him.
Do you think I'm just hoping that he gets 21?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. But again, I will give him a bit of a leash here, being on a team that bad as the Moose Jaw Warriors. I've said this for a couple of other players. It's probably tough to be motivated to go into those board battles with extra snarl when you're like, okay, we're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs at World Juniors. Like, we don't have a chance in hell here, and I'm doing everything on this team. So I give him a bit of slack there. But yeah, this is a guy that we had kind of circled and targeted, Ross, because of the links to Ottawa, and he is the type of player Ottawa likes with that size. But I'm a little lower on him than I think other Sens fans are, and people that have gotten excited about the opportunity for the Sens to draft. And I give him 4 stars, still an elite offensive player. He can score goals, and maybe he does figure that out, that attribute of using his size correctly. But for me, like, if it's coming down to let's get a group of guys here: Lakovic, Coots, Reshny, Kindle, and Malcolm Spence. Lakovic is at the bottom of that list for me. I see so much other attributes and so much other potential upside for those other guys that I probably lean towards them.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, because I think he could be a guy when his name gets called, or even better yet, in 3-4 years, we're like, damn, he is a beast and a tough guy to play against, but hasn't necessarily shown it. Like, he, to me, is a prime possibility of a guy who's going to go back to junior next year, get traded to a contender, and end up just boosting them onto their top 2 lines. You can't teach the size and you can't teach the skill. You'd rather have that and then just try to teach them how to use it more efficiently than have a guy who doesn't hold those qualities, because his puck skills are truly some of the best in the draft class. Elite Prospects analyst David St. Louis says in pure skill, he's top 5 in this draft.
Yeah, and I don't want to get it twisted. I respect and I see the skill that he has, especially I love his shot, but I don't know. I don't know what it is about. I'm giving him 4 stars here. It's not like I'm tossing 2 stars at the guy here. I think he's going to be a good player, and if the Sens did draft him, I think I would be able to get along with it. But just knowing the guys in this range, Ross, it has me a little lower on him.
Yeah, and that's going to be really, really interesting to see the development of a guy who has all the tools, but can he put his work boots on and figure it out? With an average ranking of 17.29, Lynden Lakovic comes in at number 16 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. You can find all of our draft profiles available on YouTube. All right, coming in at number 15 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, a player who unfortunately had his season cut short with an Achilles injury. Carter Bear was having a heck of a season with the Everett Silvertips.
Yeah, Carter Bear is an exceptional player. I'm very excited about him in his 3rd WHL season, although his first year he only played 19 games, so 2nd full season, and unfortunately not even a full season because of that Achilles injury that you mentioned. But my God, does this guy put up points. And Ross, we went from talking about the league worst WHL team with the Moose Jaw Warriors to the team's best, the WHL's best team in the Everett Silvertips, where he was an assistant captain in 56 games, 40 goals, 42 assists, 82 points, and a plus 33. Unfortunately, his injury did have him out for the playoffs for the Silvertips, but I mean, I don't even know. I was going to say I don't know where to start with this player, Ross, but actually I do. He is the top worker in this class. EP Scouts ranked him as the best motor in this class. EP has a little emoji got that dog in him that they give to hardworking players. Well, they bumped it up for this one, and they say he's got that bear in him. Obviously, a play on words with Bear and Ethan Bear. Funny enough, the Silvertips mascot is a bear, so nice little connection there. Maybe a Boston Bruins pick if they're willing to keep that going, but. There's so like I talk about having the hardest or best motor, Ross, and usually I think that ends up people start thinking, okay, like he's going to help out the top players on his line. He's going to be getting those guys set up. Well, this guy put up 82 points in 56 games. He is the top guy on his line in most cases, and he's got a good shot, great hands, nice playmaking, gets his own rebounds, relentless on the forecheck. If you're a middle team, like not a contender, maybe you didn't make the playoffs, you're looking for a real boost in your prospect pipeline, you'd be running up to the draft. I was going to say the draft floor. I don't know how they're going to do it realistically in the decentralized draft, but you're going to be making sure you select Carter Bear. There's so much to like about this guy as an all-around prospect, and it seems like his Achilles injury is kind of behind him. Scott Wheeler mentioned in his write-up that he's been back skating now for a bit.
He has been back skating, but he did not take part in the NHL scouting combine in the physical testing. We'll see what's next with Carter Bear, but the numbers are too good to pass up. He's 6 feet tall, 179 pounds, one of the older players in the draft, a November 2006 birthday, left shot, left wing, but he does have qualities that you could see a bit of centerman in him. To learn more about that, go check out our NHL mock draft where Stephen Ellis has a great breakdown on that. The rankings for our scouts, elite prospects, the highest on him, 8th overall on their rankings. Everybody else a lot closer together. Locked On NHL prospects at 15th overall. Bob McKenzie's midterms 15th overall. Scott Wheeler at 14. Corey Pronman at 16. McKean's at 21. And Craig Button, somehow, some way, at 24th overall. I think that one, I'd give Olympic scoring for this one. I'd take out EP's 8. I'd take out Button's 24 and say that mid-teens is the range that Carter Bear should go. But I could see him going as high as Pittsburgh at 11. How about the Detroit Red Wings? Their type of player at 13th overall. He has too many translatable qualities and the hardworking aspect that if you add him into even your training camp, you're going to notice him right away with that compete level. So what does Carter Bear do extraordinarily well, except for just being an intense player? Well, he's got awesome shot. Yep. Elite passer. The hockey sense is among the best in the draft. The only thing that he needs to improve, otherwise he'd be a no doubt top 10 pick in this draft, is the skating. Now, with that, do you think the Achilles injury might slow him down a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, he's so young. You hope that he can bounce back from that pretty good. And it doesn't really concern me that much, Ross, because if this was a Cullen Potter and your skating is your top attribute, then an Achilles injury, that really would worry me. But skating is not his bread and butter. So it's not like even if he loses a little bit of speed or something like that, it's not like that's going to be detrimental to what he provides on the ice. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yes, but what do you like most about him? Like if you're a team, you're adding him to your prospect pool, what to you is the top reason why this is a great pick?
It's his motor. Like you want a guy that has this kind of work ethic. EP says he plays with a playoff style effort every single night, game in, game out. Go to their guide, read the scouts game analysis, game reports rather, on him, and they're all consistent. It's like I didn't see anyone where they're like, Carter Bear took the night off, or this wasn't a good performance from Carter Bear. I didn't see that. And that's the kind of energy he brings. Like you said, Ross, if you're a team that's looking to build a bit of culture in your prospect pipeline at training camp, at dev camp, put this guy in the system and everybody's going to have to step things up a notch. So I think he's going to get drafted before 15. I'd be shocked if he makes it past 15. And oh man, I really do not want the Detroit Red Wings to draft this guy. I don't want to see this guy in our division.
How many Sens stars for Carter Bear?
4.5. Again, the half point is mostly because I don't think if he's there. If he's available for the Sens, Ross, he is ahead of the Cole Reshneys, the Ben Kindles, the Malcolm Spences, the Lynden Lakovic, all those guys, I've got Carter Bear ahead of them. He, like, the way he forechecks and then to have the offensive ability he has, very impressive player.
I'd even say he's ahead of Justin Carbonneau for me, just the compete level being the difference there. And we'll get to Carbonneau shortly here on our rankings. We're obviously doing a countdown, working our way up. But to me, he's the best player we've covered so far, and I don't think it's particularly close.
I would agree. Yeah, like Ross, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the type of player on draft day a team might trade up to select.
Yeah, and we will see. So maybe an X factor in this draft is Carter Bear, who comes in to our NHL Draft Rankings with an average of 16.14. Carter Bear is 15th on the Locked On Senators Draft Rankings. You can find all of our profiles available on YouTube. All right, Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is we mentioned we're cooking up some ideas about what we're going to do with the draft this year. If you have ideas or something you want to see us do, let us know. We're open to it. Ross and I obviously love the draft. We watch every second of every draft. The last six of them. So we're going to be covering it for sure. So if there's something you guys want to see or you want us to cover it a different way, we're open to ideas.
Yes, let us know in the comments on YouTube. We appreciate everybody. The support on the mock draft has been phenomenal. Again, please go check that out. Leave it on in the background too if you've already seen it, and click that thumbs up, share it, do everything to help us grow the mock draft. We will continue doing it as long as they are our biggest viewed videos on YouTube. So be a friend, tell a friend on that one. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully some good news about Brady Tkachuk, maybe another signing, and we're continuing our countdown on our draft rankings. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching, listening, and engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.